May this be Dad's last Christmas on this farm. My son raised his glass when he said it. Crystal clinked around the table as a few people laughed politely. The room glowed with warm lights and the smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and pine from the tall Christmas tree in the corner. Snow pressed gently against the farmhouse windows. For a moment, the scene looked perfect, but I noticed something most people wouldn't. The laughter wasn't surprised. It was rehearsed. I sat quietly at the head of the long wooden table my father built nearly 50 years ago, the same table where Daniel had once spilled milk while learning how to hold a glass properly. Now that same boy, grown, confident, and wearing a tailored suit, was smiling at everyone like he had just delivered the perfect holiday toast. My daughter-in-law, Rebecca, covered her mouth with a laugh. "Oh, my God, Daniel," she said, nudging his arm. "You're terrible." But she didn't say he was wrong. Across the table, my nephew chuckled awkwardly. My granddaughter stared down at her mashed potatoes, pretending she hadn't heard anything. No one looked at me, and that silence told me more than the joke ever could. Daniel leaned back comfortably in his chair. "You know what I mean, Dad," he added casually. I slowly cut another piece of turkey. "Do I asked. "Well, look around," he said, gesturing toward the windows. Outside, the field stretched wide and white beneath the winter sky. 200 acres of farmland, rolling gently beyond the old red barn and the frozen pond near the tree line. "This place is huge," Daniel continued. "Too much for one person now." His wife nodded quickly. "He's right," she added. "It must be exhausting for you." I placed the fork down carefully. The truth was, I hadn't farmed the land full-time in years. Most of it was leased to neighboring farmers who rotated crops through the fields. But they weren't talking about work. They were talking about ownership. Daniel took a sip of wine before continuing. "The roof needs repairs. The barn is falling apart. Property taxes go up every year." Then he leaned forward slightly. "But the good news is we have options." I almost smiled at that word. "What options?" I asked calmly. Daniel's eyes lit up a little. A developer made an offer. There it was, the real toast. My daughter-in-law leaned forward eagerly. "A serious offer," she said. "How serious?" I asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. $3.8 million. The number hung in the air like a firework waiting to explode. My nephew's eyebrows lifted slightly. Rebecca smiled brightly. "They want to build luxury homes here," she explained. I turned my head slowly toward the window. Luxury homes, where wheat fields once grew, where my father used to plow soil with a tractor older than most of the people at this table, where Daniel once chased chickens when he was 6. "Interesting," I said quietly. Daniel mistook my calm tone for interest. "They're ready to move fast," he continued. "Developments like this don't come around often." Rebecca nodded. "It's honestly the smartest move." I folded my hands together. "And what would happen to the farm?" Daniel shrugged. "Well, technically there wouldn't be a farm anymore." The room grew quiet again, but Daniel didn't notice. He was already picturing something else. Money, comfort, opportunity. "You could move somewhere nice," he added. "A retirement community, maybe." Rebecca smiled. "With staff, activities, everything taken care of." Like they were discussing a hotel. I looked at my plate, then back at Daniel. "You've been thinking about this for a while," I said. He hesitated, just planning ahead. But Rebecca answered honestly. "We've been talking with the developer for a few months." I nodded slowly. Of course they had. Daniel leaned forward again. "You've worked your whole life, Dad. Don't you think it's time to relax?" Relax? I almost laughed. The man sitting across from me had never seen the farm during its hardest years. He never watched my father wake up before sunrise in winter to break ice in the cattle troughs. He never watched my mother stretch grocery money through drought seasons. He never saw the nights we sat around this same table wondering if the next harvest would cover the mortgage. To Daniel, the farm was just land. To me, it was history. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I picked up my glass. You really believe tonight might be my last Christmas here? I asked. Daniel smiled. Let's just say, it might be time for the next chapter. The others nodded slightly, waiting, watching, hoping. They thought this moment was about convincing me, but what they didn't know was that I had already heard about this developer months ago. Developers talk. Farmers talk more. And when someone starts asking questions about land in a small county, word spreads quickly. I had known about Daniel's plan long before tonight. I had even heard about the offer, but I had also heard something Daniel hadn't, something much bigger. I raised my glass slowly. To the farm, I said. Everyone clinked glasses. They thought I was being sentimental. They thought the old man was remembering the past. But as the glasses touched, I realized something important. My son had spent months planning how to take this land from me. What he didn't know was that I had spent the last year preparing for this exact conversation. And after Christmas dinner, I planned to make one phone call. A phone call that would decide the future of this farm. Not for the next 5 years. Not for the next generation. But forever. After dinner, the house slowly grew quiet. Plates were cleared, chairs pushed back, and people drifted into the living room where the fire crackled softly in the old stone fireplace. Daniel stayed, close to me, the whole time. Waiting. Watching. He finally spoke while I was pouring myself a cup of coffee. So, have you thought about the offer? I took a slow sip before answering. I've thought about a lot of things. Rebecca stepped closer, her voice sweet but careful. We're only worried about you. I nodded politely. That's kind. Daniel leaned against the counter. 3.8 million is a lot of money, Dad. You wouldn't have to worry about anything again. I set the cup down. You've already talked to the developer, haven't you? He hesitated just long enough to answer the question. Just preliminary discussions. Of course. I reached for my phone, sitting on the table. Daniel frowned. What are you doing? Making a call. To who? He asked. I scrolled through my contacts calmly. Someone I've been speaking with for about a year. The phone rang twice before the man answered. Good evening, Mr. Harrison. Evening, Tom. I replied. Daniel's expression tightened slightly. I've made my decision, I said. A pause came from the other end. About the conservation agreement. Tom asked. Yes. Daniel straightened. The what? He whispered. I smiled slightly. It's time to move forward.